No, no,
अच्छा
video is enabled.
हमने एनेबल किया हुआ है सर।
अच्छा ठीक है सर, अब स्टार्ट करो टिल द टाइम, बिकॉज आई थिंक वी आर ऑन टाइम। मैं तब तक
वेट,
देखते रहता हूँ।
अभी है 2 मिनट है अभी, कोई नहीं, आप चेक कर लो एक बार।
मैं चेक कर लेता हूँ।
जस्ट गो टू द मीटिंग सेटिंग्स।
Yeah.
आपका अपना इंडिविजुअल सेटिंग्स में देखो।
Now we can see you, sir.
राव सर,
Okay. Now I think it is.
प्रेसिडेंट इलेक्ट जिंदाबाद।
Welcome, Dr. T.S.S. Rao.
Hello, good evening, sir. Last week I missed it. I was traveling somewhere.
And we missed you.
Yeah, please let's start it.
Yeah, share the slides, please. Introductory slides.
वी कैन सी यू डॉक्टर विक्रम नाउ। सो आप इसको ऑन कर लो, इसका वीडियो, इसका वो ऑन कर लो, फोन इसका, सॉरी माइक ऑन। आई थिंक होस्ट विल अलाउ यू, आपका म्यूट है अभी।
So, good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to this 231st edition of Thursday Musings. We have a full panel, full house today. We'll be talking about sex ed in education. What are the insights and learnings for everyone? So the session is being recorded. It will be put on the YouTube for later viewing. Everyone will be on the mute mode. The panelists can unmute themselves. The questions are invited in the chat box. You can drop the questions there, which will be taken to the speaker. That is all from my side. Handing over the session now to the chairman of this program, Professor Dr. Tufan Pati, sir. Next slide, please. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Alim. Next slide, please. Welcome to this edition of Thursday Musings. We have got an interesting topic to be spoken by Dr. Abhinash D'Souza. And we have with us our vibrant moderators, Dr. Alim Siddiqui, IPS Treasurer, Dr. Amit Patudosi, IPS Permanent Secretary, Dr. Bisal Chabra. Change the slides, please. Shreya? Yeah. Yes. Next one. Dr. Bisal Chabra and Dr. Shobit Garg. And I have to introduce our chairperson, Dr. Darpan Kaur from Mumbai. She is Professor of Psychiatry in Department of Psychiatry, Mahatma Gandhi Missions Medical College Hospital, Nabi, Mumbai. Founder and Consultant Psychiatrist, Sadhguru Mind Care, Mumbai. He is elected Leadership Council member of WPA Association Conflict Management Resolution Section, Chairperson Philanthropy and Entrepreneurship, IAPP. Art and Cultural Subcommittee Chairperson of IPS, Regional Ones, and our top most leaders in the Mental Health Award. Welcome, Darpan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tufan Pati, sir, for a wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Next one, please. Dr. Bikram Datta from Guwahati, or other chairperson. He did MD in Psychiatry and DM in Child Adolescent Psychiatry. His current designation and affiliation, Professor, Armed Forces Medical College and Head of the Department of Psychiatry, 151 Base Hospital, Guwahati. He has received jointly shared the Colonel Kripal Singh Award for Best Paper in Military Psychiatry in ANSYS 2024. He is Fellow of IPS, Indian Association of Child and Adolescent Mental Health. Recognized UG and PG teacher in Indraprastha University, Delhi. National and International Publications 11. His area of interest includes child and adolescent psychiatry, anxiety, depression, ADHD, and behavioral interventions. Welcome, Dr. Bikram Datta. Now onwards,
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Over to the chairperson, Dr. Bikram Datta and Darpan. One has to introduce the speaker, and both will introduce the topic. Now we will over to the chairperson. Who will introduce the speaker?
I'll introduce the speaker, sir.
Okay, Darpan will introduce the speaker. Speaker's biodata.
Yes. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me to be a chair on this session of sex education in schools and insights and learnings for everyone. So I'm very grateful to the organizing secretariat of Thursday Musings for inviting me. It's a very big honor for me to introduce Dr. Avinash D'Souza, sir, who's the esteemed speaker for today's session. Dr. Avinash D'Souza is working as a consultant psychiatrist and founder trustee, D'Souza Foundation, Mumbai, and also consultant psychiatrist, Reliance HN Hospital, Mumbai. So I think this is Sir's formal introduction, but I just would like to say that Dr. Avinash D'Souza sir is a very great and excellent psychiatrist who's been working in the domain of child and adolescent psychiatry, child psychiatry, school mental health, and has been doing so much great work with the D'Souza Foundation around Mumbai, throughout India, and is also a very internationally acclaimed psychiatrist. And as a senior, he's always there to guide and help everyone around. So it's really my privilege, and I'm grateful to the team for inviting me to chair this session. And it's my proud privilege to introduce Dr. Avinash D'Souza sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Darpan. Actually, since yesterday, I have read so much about Dr. Avinash and his work that this introduction seems very, cute and little when I saw his work. But he has been a pioneer in the field of school mental health, especially besides being an eminent psychiatrist himself. So about the topic, sex education in the schools. Now, UNESCO has defined sex education as an age-appropriate, culturally relevant approach to teaching about sexuality and relationships. Now, if we use the word sex education, especially in the school context, we see, being a diverse country as India, we have so many opinions, very diverse opinions, and there is acceptance, yes, by the academicians, by the scholars, by the administrators, but at the same time, there is also a lot of resistance at different quarters, and sometimes even from the state authorities as such. So it has been now about 7 years since the government of India had launched this Ayushman Bharat and the school health program. And what has been the learnings, what has been the experience, what has been the insights? I think there is no better speaker than Dr. Avinash to throw light on this subject. So over to Dr. Avinash. You may begin the presentation. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I'll just share my screen and start. Are my slides visible? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. So this talk is going to be more about my experiences, because when I started off working in schools as a school psychiatrist, the first those were the early years, probably I think 20 years ago, where we started doing sex education workshops, and following that, we even got called by colleges to do these workshops for 11th, 12th and degree college students, which we never expected. So I'm going to just share a bit of my experiences over here.
पेशेंट रास्ते वाले हो गए?
So the topic today is, of course, sex education. And let me tell you, it is a topic which is not very, very well accepted in many schools even today. I remember when we used to talk to principals and tell them that we would like to have a session on sex education, it would be a huge deterrent. In fact, there were times when we've had to take parental permission, and 80% of the parents have said no. And we've had only 20% of the students that have attended. So, but today, I think it's an ever expanding field. In fact, even if I look at the syllabus of what we teach under sex education has grown by leaps and bounds. Like earlier, we used to talk about human anatomy and a little bit about physiology and teach them about the male and female body. And I think today children in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th are already aware of all of that. So what we're doing is we rather have an open Q&A, and the kind of questions that they ask and the kind of things that they mention gives us a huge insight into the fact that children today are so much more aware. And I think post-COVID, they are more aware than others. Well, this is the look that principals give me when I talk about sex education in their schools, because they say that, sir, can you remove the word sex and, give it another name? And very often we've had sex education under the guise of a personality development program or a personal enrichment program, or we've had it under the guise of a personal safety program. And parents have not even thought once before signing. But the moment we write the word sex education, it makes parents think. I've had a parent that stormed into my clinic and told me that, not clinic, rather the school counselor's room, and told me that, so if you're going to teach our children about sexuality, aren't they going to go and experiment and do things that they shouldn't do and do it at an earlier age? And I remember I told them that they rather learn from a psychiatrist, a doctor, a counselor, than learn from the servant at home, or learn from the bus driver, or learn from the auto driver, or learn from elder cousins whose knowledge is half baked. So it's very essential that the right people teach them about sexuality. I also remember that there have been principals who actually asked me to share my content. Now, the funny part is I've had a principal who's told me that you can't have a nude male and female image in your slides. And I said, how am I going to teach sex education if I'm not going to have, and show them body parts? She said, you can't show genitals. I said, I'm not showing photographs. I'm showing textbook images, which are not, pornographic images or anything like that. But she said, no, you have to share your slides. We will vet the content. After that, you can decide, so this has been the thought earlier. Today, every school says, please have a sex education session. So we've reached that stage where I think every school realizes that it's okay to talk about all this. We've had parents who in the 6th and 7th standard say that, I think, you need to start talking to our children about all this at an early age. There's a lot of stress when it comes to sex education, because the worry is, how much should I tell the child? How much should I tell him? Will I tell him more? Will I tell him less? What will go wrong? I mean, there's always an old joke that a father of a 14-year-old went to his son and said that, I think we need to talk about sexuality. And the 14-year-old told the father, yes, what would you like to know? Tell me, So that is the kind of knowledge that our children have today. So what we are seeing today is children are aware of everything. And because post-COVID, they've gone digital early. They've had access to all the sites, all the information, everything. So what we do now is we don't really have a syllabus that we follow. What we do now is we go to the class and ask them a few general questions, try and gauge what their knowledge is, and have an open Q&A discussion, and then weave in some parts of sex education that we want to talk about, because that works a lot better than probably having a full-blown syllabus and body parts and other things, which they really already are very, very, very aware of. Now, the whole premise that comes in is, it's very important to realize that sex education doesn't only mean sexuality. It also means a talk about puberty. It also means a talk about pubertal changes. It also means a talk about love and relationships. It also means a talk about breakups. It also means a talk about contraception. Now, this is something which we never used to include in sex education up to maybe 5 or 7 years ago. But when I've had students who asked me in the 8th standard that, sir, how safe is an eye pill? And when I've had students who asked me that, why do contraceptives have flavors? Then you realize that, that they're aware. And that's when we've introduced a bit of contraception, and we've actually shown them a condom and how it works. And this is primarily because we are seeing a lot of accidental, experimental, incidental exposure that happens between the age of 12 and 16. And it's very, very common. And it's vital that children should be aware of what to do if they're ever caught in a situation where they are experimenting. It's not that we urge them or tell them that it's okay to experiment. We always tell them, no, it's not okay to experiment. But if they are in a situation, we don't want them to be at the wrong end. So this is something that we do. We also now have moved on to include gender, LGBTQ+, a lot of things in the sex education curriculum, which was never there earlier. Because now we get more and more children, even during sex ed class, who come and tell us that, I feel that though I'm a boy, I wish I was a girl. Though I was a girl, I wish I was a boy. So we've extended to gender dysphoria, gender issues. All that has been now spoken about. Now, a lot of people ask me, is there any particular book that we can refer to? Well, there were a few classic books about how do you talk to your kids about sexuality written in the 80s, which have been bestsellers worldwide. There are some cartoon books available that talk about sexuality. There are some, but what's very, very important is to understand is that your level, the way you teach sex education differs school to school, class to class, and based on the crowd in that school. So, for example, if I'm talking to international school students from a very affluent background, it's very different. When I'm talking to children in a regular school with a middle class, upper middle class background, it's very different. When I'm talking to children in a municipal school where they come from a vernacular medium and we are talking them in Hindi and Marathi in Maharashtra particularly, and Hindi, it's very different. So there is no real book. I mean, these are what I do normally is I collect the questions that all the students ask in every workshop. Then I sort of coalesce them, put them onto my slides, and try and answer those questions. And most of the queries get answered. So what is very important is answering the questions. They're not so keen. They're more keen that all our queries are answered more than even giving them like a theory teaching. That's not something which matters. It's a very, very important thing that it has to be interactive. One tip is we normally tell the teachers and the principals that only have one teacher who they are friendly with or one counselor around, because if there are 3 or 4 or 5 teachers around, they don't open up. So it's something which is very important. In a co-ed school, we sometimes can involve a lady psychologist so that there's a male and a female professional both in the room at the same time. Of course, you have to have a female professional who's also adept at doing these workshops. But I remember schools are opening up. So we also talk about menstruation. We also talk about menstrual hygiene, and we allow the girls and the boys both to be present at the same time. I remember there have been times in my life where I have visited a school and they've told me, so you can do the session for the boys and we'll have a lady. We want a lady who will come and do the session for the girls, and both will have to be done separately. And I very often have, put my foot down and said, no, if it happens, we'll have 2 professionals in the room, a lady and a gents, and we will have it being done for both the genders together, because boys should know about female sexuality, girls should know about male sexuality, boys should get sensitive about menstruation and menstrual education, and they should be aware, because a lot of jokes are made about various aspects of menstruation that also need to be sort of handled and told. Now, what is very important is that people often ask me that at what age do we talk about sex education? And normally what we're doing now is, as time has elapsed, we are starting even at a primary school level. Of course, we're not giving them details, but at a primary school level, it's more protective in nature, because we are seeing a huge surge in the amount of child abuse and child sexual abuse cases that are coming up. So it's very important. I remember they told me, how are you going to teach a child in the nursery and in the KG class to sort of protect themselves from child sexual abuse? And I know we went into the class, we went with dolls which were wearing the school uniform, and we told them that there are just, the only thing that we taught children from nursery to the first standard is that there are 4 parts of your body that no one should touch, and there are 4 parts of the body where you shouldn't touch anyone. No one should touch you, you shouldn't touch anyone. So these are the lips, the chest, between the legs, and the bum. Just to make it simple, we use the word bum because everybody followed what it meant. So we said no one is supposed to touch you in these 4 parts. And we repeated that. We told the class teacher that, keep repeating it. And soon it happened that we had a particular boy in the senior KG who came and said that the servant who's in my house, he touched me between the legs, and I told my parents and they removed him. So we were very happy that we were able to prevent any incidences like this from happening. So these are things which are very, very important. A slight funny anecdote on this side is children get very, very particular when you tell them things. So we've had children who have refused to let the parents touch them when they are bathing. And we've actually had to tell the child that, see, when you're bathing, it's fine. So we had to modify again what we tell the child, but it's not supposed to be touched by anyone, everywhere, anywhere. So that kind of a thing. So we have to go as per the level, which class are we going to and what are we telling them. I always remember some years back when the Nirbhaya case happened and I visited schools, we had primary school teachers who came and told us that there are children who are asking us what is rape and what are we going to tell them and how are we going to help them. And I said the only way is that we got to tell them that their rape is something bad that happens, when you have a few men that do bad things to a lady and they end up sometimes killing her. We can't tell them the details. So we've had to go at the level of what the child knew. Now, this is something that happens in every school because we've had a lot of parents who come to us and say that, what is it that you're teaching our children? And we often tell them that we're teaching them basics of what life entails. Our aim is not to trouble them or, hurt them, but we're just teaching them what they should know. And they should know this from a professional. So we're, going into those details and sort of teaching them that. And there is no place like home for sex education. I mean, ideally, the parents are the ones who are supposed to teach the child, but parents are not always equipped. So there's always going to be a little bit of a problem because not all parents are very equipped in talking to their children about sexuality or whatever. So it's not always easy. You're not always, I remember, sharing a very funny anecdote. I will tell you that I had a doctor friend of mine who was an ENT surgeon, and he phoned me and he said that my child who's in the 4th standard has asked me, how did I come into this world? And I don't know how to answer him. And so he said, please tell me, how do you explain to a 4th standard? Do I tell him that, you're a product of mom and dad's love? Do I tell him that, when we love each other, then children are born? Do I tell him that the stock just dropped him? What do I tell him? So I said that first try and gauge how much he knows. Then you try and, or has he seen something? Has he heard something? And then based on that, you try and, based on that, you try and see what he's going to do. And I remember the parent came back to me in the evening and he said, I read up some books about sex education and I found out, and I came back and I tried to explain to my son, but it was very, very funny. And he said that my friend has come from Rajasthan and where am I from? So he wanted to know the native place. So sometimes children can, put pressure on you as well. It's very important that children have to get the facts right from parents, because otherwise they will get them from somewhere else. And not all online sites are correct. Not all online sites are absolutely perfect in their information. They're not written by professionals. So we don't really know how good these sites are. And we don't really know whether information from these sites could be trusted. So we should have sex education information, which is probably put out there, which I think is very important. But not many people do that, because there's never really an end to what all you can cover in sex education. But it's important that if a child comes and tells you that, why does this happen? Or why do I get hair around my private parts? Why do I bleed every month? Parents have to tell them about this. And if parents don't know, then they're supposed to come and ask professionals and probably get the advice from them. So this is an example of how we have used dolls with the school uniform, where we've actually had a pant and a skirt and different school uniforms, and we've explained to children how it works. I remember also that every question children ask have to be answered. I remember when I went to school once, we had a primary school teacher who was very hassled in the 1st standard, and she told me that the boys are saying that, why is the boys' bathroom different and the girls' bathroom different, and we want to go together to the bathroom? Why have to we go to different bathrooms, and the boys are trying to run into the girls' bathroom and vice versa, and what do we do? So I said, okay, we will talk to them about it. And so what we did was, just like you take children out in a line to go to the ground or go to the school hall, we took them to see the bathrooms. We said, you're going to see both the bathrooms. And then we told the boys that, see, if you see the girls' bathroom, you cannot stand and pass urine like how you pass. You cannot aim, you cannot do anything like that. You have to sit and pass urine. So, and because they have a skirt, so they have to sit. whereas you probably have a pant and you have a zip, so you can, and if you want to wear a skirt and tomorrow use the girls' bathroom, it's absolutely fine. And they said, no, 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 we're okay. They understood the differences. So sometimes we have to explain to children what the differences are. And, we also explain to children about certain body parts where people shouldn't touch them and shouldn't do anything. So that's there. And we can also use these kind of dolls to explain genitals and other areas to younger children. Now, what's very, very important is that children always know about sexuality. One of the biggest myths that we carry or we have is that children are not aware. They are always aware. They always know. I remember that I spoke to 5th standard students, and today 5th standard students know as much as 8th standard students knew at one time. We spoke to 8th standard students and they know as much as 18-year-olds know. So the level of knowledge, the level of awareness, the level of, I would say, access to information has increased. And this has resulted in more and more people knowing about sexuality at an earlier age. Another aspect of sex education that we also cover is bad language and bad signs. And this is very important because we get a lot of teachers who come to us and say that children are showing the middle finger and children are, making dirty signs, and, you need to talk to them about it. So it's very important that we talk to different classes and different ages about foul language, about bad language, about how not to be rude, how not to sort of torment another child, how not to bully another child sexually. So these are all things which we need to probably, explain to different children. I remember we even had a session where we've written down different bad words on the board and different abusives on the board, and asked children to whether they know the meaning of these abusives. And I remember a particular teacher in a school that where children were using sexual slangs and sexual abusive languages. And the punishment that she came up with was that if any child was caught using a sexual slang, you will write that word along with its meaning 20 times and get it signed by your parents and bring it to school the next day. There's no other punishment. You won't be shouted at, no remark in the calendar, and this will be a private affair. This class won't know that you're punished. This is between you and me. But children got a little worried and they began to reduce their use of bad language. So having workshops on these things and making them aware definitely plays a very important role. And not using foul language is something I think which is very, very, very important in schools. We talk to children today about love and relationships. I remember a parent from the 9th standard who, after my session, came and told me that how could you tell my child that love is a normal emotion? And, so you're encouraging 9th standards to fall in love. And I said, that was not what I meant. What I meant was that it's very normal that you're meeting a few people every day. And since you're meeting a few people every day, there are going to be things that you share. There are going to be things that you like about people. And it will happen that you may end up falling in love with someone. And love is a pure emotion. It's not a bad emotion. I said, more than falling in love, everyone falls in love. We have to teach children how to handle a breakup, which is very important. Though love and relationships is not my area today, but still we conduct this even as a part of the sex ed program. So we tell children that love is not a bad emotion. And sexuality is a way of, they ask me, why do people indulge in sexuality? And we always say it's one way of expressing love. When you get sexual, you are nude or semi-nude. So you're like a small child, just like you were in front of your mother, and you surrender yourself to someone. And that is why this happens. So not many people may appreciate all of this, but this is something which a lot of children often ask. It's very important that we answer all the questions, even the stupid ones. So we've had children who asked us, what if a girl on a given night has sexual relationships with 4 different boys and gets pregnant? How will we know who's the father? So you do a DNA test. So, there are ways in which you sort of answer these questions. A lot of people ask how these are 9th standard students who ask me that when does a urine pregnancy test come positive? how fast. And I always remember in a school where I worked, children went on an overnight trip, and we had a boy and a girl from the 9th standard probably got sexually involved on the trip. It was unprotected. When they came back, the girl missed a period. Her period was due on a particular date. It didn't come. She got terrified, petrified, horrified, and she immediately phoned the boy. And the boy got worried. So the girl said, I have to meet the counselor. So the counselor brought her to me. She was very, very afraid that I'll inform the parents. And I said, no, we'll not inform the parents right now, but we'll just wait and see. And the very next day, I mean, the girl started vomiting. So they both got frightened, thinking that probably, is it good news? Is something going to happen? What has happened? And I said, no, you can't start vomiting so fast. It won't happen that way. And then I remember the girl was sent to the family doctor. Family doctor said it's acidity with a few antacids. Her vomiting stopped, probably stress-induced acidity. The girl got her period in a day or two, so everything fell into place. Parents had to be informed because we can't keep it totally confidential, but we did inform the parents, educated them. So these kind of things also happen. We have people who ask us about that, why is it some people have more pubic hair, some people have scanty pubic hair, all sorts of questions. Why is it that my mustache is thin, someone's mustache is bigger? There are all sorts of questions that they ask. Does the size of the penis matter? Multiple things, and we have to answer every question that they ask. The secret of sex education, it's not only education, sex education, is that you got to respect the pupil. It's very important to understand that these are children, and they ask you all sorts of questions, and we cannot tell them that, I'm not going to answer such stupid questions. We've had students, I apologize for the language, but there's going to be some language which I'm going to use here, which is what students say. So they want to know the meaning of the 4-letter word that starts with F, what it actually means, why is it used so much. They want to know what a whore is, W-H-O-R-E. They want to know why is it called that way. Is prostitution, why can't it be legalized in India? So they have all these kind of questions that they ask you. And some people who even, I'm amazed that 9th standard students ask you that, do you think that when we're new and we do not know much about sexuality, taking Viagra will help us perform better? So, these are the kinds of questions that children ask, and we have to be open and ready to answer all these questions. And why sex education? Because the difference between school and life is very clear. In school, you're taught a lesson and then given a test. In life, and I think with sexuality, you're given a test that teaches you a lesson. So no one is really taught about theory. So we got to respect about that as well. We answer every question. I tell students at the beginning of my workshop, even if it takes 3 hours, my workshop is 1.5 hours, but even if it takes 3 hours, I'm going to sit here and answer every question that you want. And it's important that you talk to children about what they want to hear. So I remember I was once visiting a school in the 9th standard, and the principal was very worried because she said that the 9th standard students are free and they don't have anybody to talk to them, and there's no teacher. And I told them that I will probably speak to them. And I remember I entered their classroom and I wrote the word girlfriend in block letters on the board. It was a boys' school, so they were very, very quiet. And I said, today we're going to talk about sexuality. We're going to talk about girlfriends. We're going to talk about different things. And when we sort of speak about all this, we will at a later stage see what has to be done and what is what. And then what we decided is that we will probably talk about love relationships. And the session went on for 2 hours and the students sat. We answered every query. So we have to do that. We've also reached a stage today in sex education where we talk about LGBTQ plus also. We don't normally talk about we talk about LGBTQ plus because it's very, very essential. People want to know, am I gay? Am I lesbian? Am I gender fluid? They have all these kinds of questions. Can I undergo a sex change when I'm 15? Can I start hormonal therapy when I'm 16? You have all these kinds of questions that come up. So we have to answer them. And a lot of children come to us today in the 8th, 9th, 10th standard saying that Sir, I don't feel attracted to the opposite gender. Does that mean I belong to the LGBTQ plus community? And I tell them, it doesn't mean so. We'll wait. We will see how your sexual development happens. We will see how you evolve till you're 20, 25, and then see how things work out. And then we will take a call. There's no reason for you to label yourself as anything right now and come out of a closet, say anything right now which storms a label to you. Let sexual development happen till the age of 20. We'll see. One of our schools, we had a group of students who said, can we go and take part in the Pride March? The Pride March is the LGBTQ plus community march that happens during the Pride week. And we had students in a school uniform supporting the LGBTQ plus community, which we were very proud of, that we had these students often do that. So this is something I already told you earlier. So parents come and tell the child, it's time we had a talk about sex, and the child says, what would you like to know? Because children are today very, very, very aware. I mean, there are times, my son is 17, and there are times when I have conversations with him and I learn at times, his generation is so aware about so many things, and I learn about multiple things about sexuality that I probably didn't know. I'll give you some examples. Schools where I work, most children in the 9th standard have seen a movie called 50 Shades of Grey at least 5 times. Schools where I work, there are children, all children have accessed pornography above the age of 14. Above the age of 12, a lot more have. Animated pornography is something that they also access. They are now using AI to access pornography. So children are aware of all these things. Recently, we've had an incident in a school where using AI, a child has made a video of him kissing his teacher, and the video has gone viral. Nowadays, you have those AI kissing apps which are there. So, and the teacher felt very embarrassed, and I told her it's an AI video. So there's nothing to be embarrassed. You haven't kissed the child. So even if it goes viral, it's a morphed video. No one is trusting or, thinking that your integrity here is at stake. No, not at all. It's the boy's fault. He'll be pulled up. It's not your fault at all. So, it was a photo of you standing with him in a school function, which he's put onto an app and then, made it look as though you kissed each other. So don't get worried. And we realized the boy was pulled up. We had an entire session on AI and sexuality and bullying and how it shouldn't happen. So, so this is something that we also did. Boys today are having their sexual arousal conditioned by depictions of extreme cruelty. So they're seeing cruel sexuality on pornography. When I speak to young boys, they tell me that they're seeing BDSM. Sorry for the language, but they're seeing BDSM. They're seeing girls being whipped. Now, this is all before they've even had their first sexual experience. They've never even had their first kiss, and they're seeing all this. So you can imagine the impact it's going to have on them. We have to tell them that, see, pornography is morphed. Nobody can do what they're doing for 1 hour. The video is repeated. It's shot differently. It's totally different. Don't think, that you're also going to be able to do that. Real life sexuality is very different. So there are multiple things that, have to be taught to children. Well, this is what Freud said, that the virtuous man contents himself with dreaming that which the wicked man would do in actual life. So this is what often happens. So children develop fantasies about, all sorts of things about sexuality. I remember students in the 9th and 10th asked me that, so what are your views about group sexuality, group intercourse? And I said, it's a personal choice. I said, you can either be one flower or you can be a jungle. It's your choice how you want to deal with your sexuality. So it's something like that. So we have children who ask this, and pornography today is very, very accessible. Pornography usage by children is also an integral part today of our sex education sessions. The new thing is children are sexting. They're talking about sexuality. So we've had parents who've come to us with downloads and printouts of WhatsApp messages saying that this is what children are talking to each other. I always remember, even when I was in school many years back, we've had incidences where you had children on the last bench in the 9th standard compare the size of their penises. This is in a boys' school. It's happened. But I mean, we never had access to pornography. It was magazines that people would get, or probably video cassettes in an era which was difficult to procure. It was very difficult because you had to smuggle the video cassette, smuggle the video, see it when your parents are not around. It was very, very difficult. But today's era, it's all available online. There's an entire website that talks about the different slangs used while sexting. There's a dictionary of sexting also available. So that is how, we have progressed. So people are so aware about, these things. And we have to keep, I would say, abreast of the short forms that children use. So there's a joke to this, that one of the girls who I know in a school where I work, she wrote to her mother that I got 20 out of 20 in my chemistry test. And the mother wrote WTF. Now for young girls and young boys, WTF has an entirely different meaning. So she told the mother that, why did you write WTF? And the mother said, oh, wow, that's fantastic. That's the short form that I meant. So sometimes the short forms we use and the short forms they use have entirely different meanings. So children are aware about these things. Adolescents who are intentionally exposed to violent, sexually explicit material are 6 times more likely to be sexually aggressive than those who are not exposed. And they share sexually violent material. They share YouTube videos, they share Insta posts, they have all sorts of things which they do. So a young child's mind thinks, and we have to quell all their queries. I again say this, answer all their queries, don't get worried. I've had children in a 9th standard class ask me, sir, are you sexually active? And I say, yes. They ask me, how often? I say, that's none of your business. That's my personal life. But you ask me, am I active? Yes, I'm active. So we have to be actually casual with them. We can't get upset. How dare you ask me about this? And how dare you ask me about that? No, we have to go down to their level. So I always ask them, how many of you are? And 10% raise their hand. And that opens your eyes and you realize that, oh, that they are so. And they're so open about it. Sir, it's once a week, it's twice a month. I mean, they already have it, ready, and they're ready to talk about it. So that's the difference that is there. So yes, and with small children, these things happen. I always say sexual development is very funny. What is permitted at one age is not permitted at another age. So if you look at this photograph, these are 2 children who are probably in junior KG. This photograph would be clicked by the parents, put on social media, and everyone would say, wow, how cute, how nice. But if the same children were in the 9th standard, would we put up these photographs? No, we wouldn't. So what is allowed at one age is not allowed at the other. So I always say that 1st standard child giving a rose to the teacher feels very nice about it. 9th standard boy giving a rose to the teacher gets upset about it. And she says, how can you bring a rose and how can you do this? Similarly, boy and girl holding hands in KG, everyone says how cute, how nice. Boy and girl holding hand and sitting in 9th standard and 10th standard, everyone looks at it differently. So what is allowed at one developmental period is not allowed at another period. And young children have access. They are left all alone on the internet and they have access. They see trailers of sexual content on Netflix just because they have access. So that is something which is there. Before they turn, and this is important, before they turn 18, 1 in 6 boys experience sexual abuse, 1 in 4 girls. So we talk about CSA, child sexual abuse, also in our sex education sessions. And a lot of them at 14, 15, 16 come to me after the session and say, sir, when I was 6 years old, this happened. When I was 7 years old, this happened. And my parents did nothing about it. Do you think I should undergo counseling now? And we also talk about POCSO in our sex education session so that children are aware about POCSO. They should know that they can take a stand for themselves. Every school is supposed to have a POCSO complaint box where children can put anonymous complaints if they feel that they are sexually assaulted. Questions asked by 9 to 12-year-olds. How do you make babies? What is a period? Why does one get it? What is masturbation? Is it bad? So a lot of children say that, sir, masturbation makes me weak. There are a lot of myths and facts about masturbation that we talk about. What is an orgasm? What does puberty mean? When can I start shaving? What is a wet dream? Why do kids get acne? This is what 9 to 12-year-olds ask. Well, 12-year-olds plus asks, what is sexual intercourse and how do we go about it? That's something which they often ask. And what is contraception? Can you get AIDS by kissing? Is it okay to be gay or lesbian? Who are hijras? What does an abortion mean? Is it okay to have, can you get pregnant having oral sex? So they have all these kinds of questions that they ask. Remember, the question today is not whether they will get information about sex, but How and when will they get information? They will always get information. It's not if your child will engage in sexual activity, but it is when will it happen. So it's going to happen at some point of time. The issue is when. We as parents have to be primary sexual educators for our children. I always say this. So it's something like this. A small child asks the mother, if God brings the sun and rain, the earth brings our food, and the stork brings baby, so then what is dad hanging around for? So this is what children are. They're very aware of what happens, and they're very aware about all the things that are going on. People want sex educations out of the school. They believe sex education will causes, they believe that sex education causes promiscuity. The answer here is I took algebra, but I never became a mathematician. So it doesn't matter. You have to talk to children about sex education. I always say we have cancer awareness in schools. It doesn't mean children get cancer. We have menstrual awareness. It doesn't mean that they have a menstrual problem. So yes, we can have sex education. And yes, we teach children about all emotions. It's absolutely fine. Love is a very important emotion. The future is AI, pornography, AI sexuality. You can have a girlfriend in AI. These are all things that children are going to probably come up to in the future. And children are more and more aware. They read about sexuality. I remember there was a time when girls used to read Mills and Boons, and today they are reading Twisted Tales and Twisted Games and Twisted. So their novels are twisted sexuality novels. Okay, they're not simple sexuality novels anymore. We've had 9th standard boys reading gay erotica literature, and it doesn't mean they're gay. They just read it because they like to read it. And we have to realize that it's expanding. The horizon of sexuality is expanding. So when children pretend, they're using their imaginations to move beyond the bounds of reality. A stick can be a magic wand, a sock can be a puppet, a child can be a superhero. So children have the imagination capability, which earlier we didn't have. I end with this quote by John Lennon, which I always believe is very vital for children today. When I was 5 years old, my mother told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment. I told them they didn't understand life. So this is something which is very important, that we have to teach children to be happy no matter what happens. Thank you very much. And I'll be very happy to answer any questions that are there.
Wonderful, Avinash. Shobit, take up.
Excellent presentation, Avinash sir, as usual. So I would like to now request the chairpersons for their comments before we move on to the question answer session. Dr. Vikram, you can unmute.
He can't unmute.
Yeah. Should I, that one, ma'am?
Okay, you proceed, then I talk. Okay.
Yeah. So after this presentation, I can only, repeat what you said in the presentation, WTF. And that is, wow, that's fantastic. Wonderful presentation, not the usual one, which we say. So sex education in schools has come a long journey, what we have learned. And it has been so lucid and so elegant hearing Dr. Avinash presenting. I like the format that you didn't use didactic lot of phrases and sentences, and it was more of your experiences and very good quotes and good drawings. Those are the practical aspects which we use. So this topic has been a little sensitive, quite sensitive, that the acceptance and resistance are in equal measure when we talk to the teachers. And I think most of us have had similar experiences when we went to school with this, initiative of having a lecture. And after a few lectures, they do get comfortable. But again, as the setup changes, the questions and queries and the censorship, the vetting, these requests do come up. But I took some messages from your lecture. That is that the sex education is not only the physical aspect, but it also teaches about the psychological and social aspects of sexuality. It also teaches about relationships. It teaches about the life skills, their communication skills. It also teaches them to be sensitive, to increase their sensitivity towards the opposite gender. And as counselors or the psychiatrists, we also have to handle our own anxiety and be prepared to answer all their queries. So we should be able to answer all their questions and queries in order to, get the message through in a more positive way. Because ultimately the aim of sex education is to increase their not only knowledge, but also increase their ability to make good choices and good judgment about life and relationships. Thank you, sir. It was wonderful hearing you. Over to Darpan ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Bikram. And first of all, a very big congratulations to Dr. Avinash D'Souza, sir. It's been a very excellent and very insightful lecture. All the examples that you shared reflects your years of decades of experience into the field, and what you shared with everyone is your real world intelligence and applications of how you've come across and developed this excellent presentation. So most of the time there are lectures where people may refer textbooks or research articles, but your lecture has been very insightful because it's brought out all your years of expertise that you have built up. So I think the whole audience will agree that it's been a very insightful session. So I'd also like to make some comments as the chairperson that sex education is a very important topic. And at the same time, it's very sensitive. It's quite complex. It has cultural ramifications. A level of developmental appropriateness has to be considered. And while someone is thinking out from a clinical perspective on a one-to-one therapy sessions or group therapy sessions, or just from academic perspective, for how much of this is, taught to psychiatrists during residency or for child psychiatry and child mental health training, there's also to look at sex education, that what is the research scenario, what are the publications, how many are perspectives, how many are, case-based discussions, and how much of it is what is the original research on sex education in India and abroad, and are there any evidence-based or developmentally validated or indigenously developed sexual education programs, or are there any Western models? So what is the, evidence base with respect to, conducting training programs, and also what is currently being followed? We need to also collectively think on these aspects. And coming to the most important point, that child psychiatry, school mental health, this intersects at the end of it with society. Main impact is on society. So we have to know, Dr. Avinash, that your presentation and the subsequent discussions, and I think Dr. Yesesra also asked you to look at it from a publication perspective. This is a very important topic from a policy perspective. And from the Thursday Musings group, we have Dr. Tofan Pati, we have Dr. Vishal Shabra, Dr. Shobit, Dr. Aleem and Dr. Amrit, who are also on, our Indian Psychiatric Society office bearers. So I think it would be also good that the think tanks in psychiatry and mental health should look at it from policy perspectives. And it would not be essential to just think that only psychiatry has a role in it, because it's multi-stakeholder. So a perspective taking into this topic about who are else the vital stakeholders. So what I can think about, it's education. So the education stakeholders, psychiatry, allied mental health professionals, policy experts, and whichever areas, questions that you've raised, developmental experts. So what may be appropriate, say for a 17 or an 18-year, a totally different approach may have to be taken for a 6-year-old, 8-year-old. So looking at experts in each domains is important. And also looking at nowadays with the age of technology and AI, how all of this intersects. So with sex education, and there could be a positive aspect that, developing models which are tech-driven, yet at the same time enhance education and mental health perspective, and also looking at resource documents. So I have come across a WHO comprehensive sexuality education curriculum, which is there on the WHO website. And there's also a United Nations global guidance document on sexuality education. So I think that the participants who are interested in this topic may refer the WHO website and these documents. And what they actually talk about in short is that why is sex education important? What age is considered relevant and appropriate? Who should impart sex education? How does it impact and make a difference? What does it actually impact? What is the real difference that is, made? And there are also some questions that they've compiled that, does it, prevent abuse? Does it encourage, which they have said that country to country, culture to culture, the document can be referred and seen that how it can be, catered and researched and provided within the cultural and developmentally appropriate lens of a country or a system in place. So these are my thoughts on sex education in schools, and it's a multi-dimensional, complex aspect which needs diverse stakeholder perspective. And I'd also like to thank Dr. Vishal Chabra, whom I can see in this panel, for inviting me in this prestigious panel and allowing me to share my thoughts and perspectives. Thank you.
I think we can thank you, Dr. Darpan and Dr. Bikram. I think we can take questions from the chat. Let's start with Shobit first.
You have actually mentioned the developmental appropriateness of this, but still one age where we have to imparting sex education. Parents might ask us, so what is that age, sir?
So I normally say that we start right from primary, and each year it has to be like a curriculum, it has to be part of the curriculum where every year the intensity, the level increases a bit. And we gauge by talking to the class how much they know. So I remember if you go to a second standard class and tell them what is sex and you put a question mark on the board, they'll all giggle and they'll laugh and whatever. And then they'll actually tell you that I've seen it in the movies, I've seen it here. So that they're aware slightly about what we mean, although they may not know details. So we gauge how much they know, and then according to that we have to sort of go. So I normally say it starts with just protection at a KG level, first standard level, and then every year a little bit of information as they go, because we have third standards today who say I have a girlfriend and a boyfriend. So so we have to just know that we are increasing, children are increasing in their worldview, I'll put it that way. So we need to go with that.
So how to maintain confidentiality, sir? That's one of the question in the chat box. Specifically, if the child is brought by the parents, and then we'll have to address this the sex education. Later on, they come to us and then they want to ask us, and probably this assent consent business has not been explicit.
Yeah. So normally at a school level, I always tell children that if you're active sexually, it's not something that I can totally hide from your parents. I can have a joint session with you and your parents where we disclose this together, so I can control your parents' reactions. And I can control your parents' reactions and probably make them understand where you're coming from. So that is something that I can do with you. I may not talk to them behind your back and tell them that your son or your daughter is doing this or doing that, and then they come home and shout at you or get angry or hit you. I can have a session wherein, and I normally tell them who's the more amenable parent. Is your mother more accepting? Is your father more accepting? So they'll often say, no, you talk to my dad. I think he's more understanding. You talk to my, so I said, fair enough. So we do that,
So there's another question related to this. Should we have separate sessions for boys and girls?
No, I always believe the sessions have to be together. It's always better because both genders have to know about each other.
even in the initial session, even if for the
Yeah, of course, right from
Okay.
day one. See, there have been times, I'll tell you, wherein I've been invited to a school in Bikaner, where they said
Okay.
that if you don't do it separately, we won't do it. So then again, culturally, sometimes we've had to give in. I'll put it that way. So I remember I've been to Pathankot where we had it separately. We've not had a choice. I mean, so culturally, of course, there may be times, but I think in a metro city, it's something that can be done. You know, it's Bombay, at least, I don't think we are lucky we don't face that problem. But I think in smaller cities, you may have to give in to that demand if, because otherwise the parents say we won't send the girls at all.
Yeah.
So,
What about the
I was one called to Mathura.
yeah.
So I had prepared a very good presentation. The moment I entered, everybody told Radhe, 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 Radhe. Between the introduction and this, I had to change all my slides. I had to change my presentation. And after the end of the presentation, I was almost, but lynching nahi hua mera. That was the level. But I want to ask you a question to Avinash. Is sex education relevant anymore in schools?
I think it's very relevant because they are already aware, but the only thing is that at least they get correct answers to their questions. I don't think formatted sex education is relevant in the sense that you teach them anatomy. It's part of their biology textbook. So that is something which is there. I remember a school where we've had biology teachers who are reluctant to teach human anatomy. And they told me that, sir, you come and teach that chapter also and do sex education also. So, I've actually taught reproductive system to children, and I've also answered queries on sexuality.
And do you think teachers should be there, school teachers, or do you want them
They
to
should be there because they need to be aware. They need to be aware. I mean, see, I've had an incident where a boy went and told the teacher, "Ki, ma'am, I feel I'm gay." And she said, tum ye sab anap shanap baatein kaise kar sakte ho? And she's, so I think their awareness is also very important about these things.
Sir, in extension to this, how we should tinker sex education for rural setups and urban setups?
Well, I think, see, it in rural areas also, if you ask me very frankly, I think children are the same everywhere. I've gone to schools all over India and I found that the level of knowledge is similar. I mean, the mode of speaking may be different. That, so it is something like this. So it's something from that point of view. But I think that it's very important that we sort of we have to judge how much that crowd knows, and of course it will be in the regional language. So we'll speak at that language and at that level, and then decide.
One of the attendants says, so delegate has personally requested me to ask this question from the chat box. Is my daughter 4-year-old imitates me during her pretended play and tries to feed her toys, saying she's feeding her children. I have a 6-month-old baby and feed him in front of her. Don't know how to explain it. And then since she also wants that, she also has a habit of lowering her pants and showing her bums to the maids and others to tease them. And we would regularly scold her again and again. And how to explain her about this?
Well, I think, see, children imitate breastfeeding if they see that happen. So I don't think it's a source of worry. You can talk to the child and explain that it's not something which is to be laughed about. It's something which is very normal. Even you had this done to you when you were smaller, and it's happening now. Yes, with regard to showing the bum, etc., we need to talk to the child and find out at her level, maybe at a very primitive level, as to why that happens. Sometimes children use, the bum as something shameful, or the genitals as shameful. So we've had children in primary who suddenly just pull down their pants for 1 minute, like something similar to the teacher say that he'll just flash his genitals for 1 minute and pull it up again. So this is a little bit of attention seeking, a little bit of.
Can I add?
Yes.
One of the most important things is you follow the extinction principle here, where you don't even notice, you don't even give any importance to the behavior will shut down. It is like a child who wants attention, like you told, and the more attention, like you tell, don't show it, don't do that.
It's
way of getting attention. So many of the times when a child is shouting obscenities, and you just ignore. After some time, the novelty of the whole thing goes down. and that won't be repeated. I follow it a lot of times and have got wonderful results.
I agree totally.
Avinash sir, I am a 13-year-old boy. So I want to have sexual intercourse. How to go about it, sir?
You have a 13-year-old boy?
Sir, I am.
Okay, you're a 13-year-old boy. So normally what, this is a question that a lot of children ask me, that are we physically ready at 13 for sexuality? So why do we have to wait till 18? This is what they ask. And my answer here is that sexuality is not only physical. Sexuality is also mental, it's emotional, and you're offering your body to someone, you're uniting with someone in sexuality. So it's going to leave a lasting impact on you emotionally, particularly if it's your first sexual experience. So the thing is that are you ready mentally for it? If this person you're involved with suddenly leaves you, are you going to be ready mentally to deal with that loss? And the issue is that, okay, experimentation may happen, all those things will happen, but the key issue here is that no, it's not, it's something which you don't, we all have desires, but it doesn't always happen that, those desires have to get fulfilled. So I said, you have a crush on your teacher, but that doesn't mean you get involved with your teacher. These are things that happen. Your teacher is not going to get involved with you, definitely. So these are things that happen. So we explain to them that there's an age and time for certain things, and it will happen. Now, it's something like this. Someone even, I think in the chat I saw one of the questions, I think that someone asked me, do I feel premarital sex is okay or not? Now, that's a very different question. We're looking at an adult group. But if you ask me, is between 13 and 16-year-olds, do I, say, is sexual exposure okay? The answer here is, we've always said it's not okay. It's not right. They're too early. They, need to know about sexuality, understand sexuality. Post 18, these things happen. But if it happens too early, what happens is that they're not yet equipped knowledge-wise. They're not yet equipped mentally. The emotional component is too much to handle. So this is something which is but yes, it's impulsive. It does happen impulsively amongst teenagers, and we're seeing a lot of it happen. So
one thing which is striking me is because of the very high prevalence of sexual abuse, both in males and females. Would it be right to say that one of the major roles of sex education is to make people aware, so don't get sexually abused?
Well, I think, see, children particularly have to be aware, how to protect themselves. So there are times when, it's not only children, even staff. So we have a training program wherein staff are even explained how they are not supposed to just touch children anywhere when they lift them and put them into the school bus and, put them down from the school bus. So there's a particular way in which the child can be, this thing. So it's very important. Children also have to be, taught about boundaries at age appropriately, what is there. So that is something which is there. And protecting themselves from inappropriate touch is very, very important.
Sir, a softer level of a question like kissing, around 10-year-old. So they are they have a lot of questions about that. So how to address that? You address in your presentation, sir?
No, so normally we answer at the level at which they ask. So somebody asks you, why do people kiss? So I say that if I tell them a very simple thing, if I take a pin and you hurt your lip, does it hurt? Yes. It's a sensitive area. Put your finger like this on your lip. It's a sensitive area. So what kissing does is people feel they kiss because it's a way in which they express affection. I said, has your mother ever kissed you on the cheek? Yes. Has your mother ever kissed you on the lips? Yes. Some children say, yes, it has happened. Has your mother ever kissed you on the forehead? Yes. So how did you feel? And I felt nice. So same way people who are in love kiss, and it's absolutely nice. But it doesn't mean that you go around kissing everyone just to get a feeling of how it is. A kiss is a mark of affection reserved for certain people. It's not reserved for everybody.
Right. So there is a question. I think in context of rape, you have already addressed this. that did you come across with any such sessions where the questions are asked extended to the understanding concept or definition of rape, especially the clauses of with and without her consent before the age of
Let us,
18 years?
let us
And-
confine to the topic, I think, Shobit.
Okay,
Let
sir.
us, let us not digress too much, because he is here.
So there
No,
are
we
few-
will not had children ask too much on the legalities. No, that has not happened. That has not happened. See, I will give you only one example, a very small example, not related to rape. We've had a case wherein a boy and girl have been involved sexually. These are both who are below the age of 18. And I remember the father came to the school, the girl's father, and told the boy that, I'm going to put a POXO complaint against you and see that, you'll be behind bars and all that. And I will tell you, I won't say that I was proud about this, but I at least felt a little nice about this, that the girl told the father that, dad, whatever happened, he didn't rape me. He's not done anything out of the way. It happened because I allowed him to do something. And if you file a POXO case, I will go and say that, no, I was the one who urged him, to do this. So I equally deserve a POXO case on me then, that kind of a thing. So the father was shocked that the girl said that. He even slapped the girl there in front of us. But these are things that, happened. So, I'm just giving you that children are very aware of rights, sexuality, POXO. When we've had a POXO box, we've also had to investigate false complaints. It's not just, children who have angst against a teacher can just put a false complaint. So it's something that is also a very important facet of POXO.
Any online avenues for training, sir? You mentioned few books names. People want to know that any online training.
No, so there are a lot of books available if you go online. I will share the names. There are a lot of books available, but I think there are a few Indian books also which are there. There are Q&A books also which are there. So that is there. So I think you can read, but I think the more you talk about it and the more you go and do these workshops, you'll realize. And Darpan, I think, mentioned that WHO guidelines also, so you can refer to those guidelines as well, I think, for these things.
And I think it's a very interesting comment which has come in the chat box, that a lot of people consider that mental health professionals are adept in providing good sex education. I think there is
No,
some.
we're not adept. See, I never knew what to do when I started off. I was more nervous than the kids when I went for my first sex education workshop. It's only over time that I, now know what they'll ask and what they, So there are times now where I have a lot of junior psychiatrists who go and they tell me, sir, I'm doing it for the first time. Will you be the chairperson? We'll get little power if you're there in the room. So I said, okay, sure, I'll be there. And if I find that there's a lot of what do you call it, leg pulling happening from the children's side, then I get up, take the mic, handle the situation. They feel, but it's a learning experience. So, we all learn.
I'd like to make a comment and add on to Dr. Avinash sir's comments. So just 2-3 points. One thing is that I was wondering that there may be a lot of variability. So I think there's some questions also in the chat box, that are there any resources, or are there any schools are asking them for PowerPoint presentations. So I just feel like, what are your thoughts if you are an expert and you've conducted so many programs? It would be good for you or some people who are working very,
Okay, I will share two
yes, so
experiences.
going
I
ahead,
will share.
making
Yes,
some resources for the country, or further taking your program and making maybe some Q&As that you have shared, making some creative, for developmental appropriate levels, just question and answers. So these are some ways that your work can be cited, shared, and also if along with the IPS that we have esteemed office bearers here, so you can see how you can make some standard simple PowerPoint presentations, and then make some consensus group along, and then bring in experts and validate them, and then share it with the rest of the country and the world, because they'll already be expert validated, and some resources can also be compiled within that. And these are ways that where this lecture of Thursday Musings can further link to so much more good work for the profession. Thank you.
No, I agree. See, any material I have, I'm just ready to share. There's no problem at all. The second thing is that I've had incidences. I'll tell you. I went to a particular school around 10 years back. They told me, will you share your slides after the presentation? They said that we want to share it with parents, etc. I shared my slides. They called me 1 year. They made 3 teachers attend my presentation. And the next year, they decided to tell the teachers to do it themselves. Now, I really don't know how adept were the teachers at, trying to answer the questions. Then they told me the teachers will do the session. You only come for the Q&A, that kind of a thing. So this is how sometimes schools may misuse your presentation, which I feel is not proper. I now at this level, if schools tell me we want to see your presentation, I think I tell them very clearly that, you have called me as an expert. I'm not come to your school and told you I want to give a talk. So I don't share my presentation. You can attend my talk. And if you find anything offensive, you can tell me then and there. But I don't share my presentation because I think, and my presentation is such that unless I am there, no one will be able to, probably talk on the slides because they are images. They're not really theoretical points that someone could, probably I think and I put an image. It is something like that. So there are no theoretical points that I share. So I said, and if you want a handout, I can give a handout for the students or something. So that is something which I provide.
So I just also wanted to share, sir, that just as how we're doing it on the Zoom, we can also creatively think to develop some digital ways to improve sex education in schools and look at, novel aspects, how with digital developments, how this can be standardized and, more people can be benefited from it.
Dr. Darpan is on all for standardization. So we'll start winding up.
And digitalization of sex education.
Yes.
So
Standardization and digitalization.
And one last point in my multi-stakeholder, I also would like to say that parents and schools are also very vital stakeholders in along with the psychiatrist and the allied mental health, and maybe the children and adolescents themselves.
One last question we'll take, and then I think we'll start winding up. Dr. Sadeev has asked, 16-year-old female, history of sexual abuse at the age of 7. She experienced twice bad touch, 1 month back by her close uncle, and the day she came from another uncle. She asked me why I have to experience such abuse always. How to handle this question? So
why do I have to experience?
Why do I have to keep experiencing such abuses?
Such abuse.
How do some people
see? I always tell children who come to me that it's not your fault that you experience the abuse. It's something that's happened. There are bad people and a lot of bad things happen. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. There's no need for you to think of it that, this happened to me, so I'm the one who's guilty. What happens in many child abuse cases is the child gets blamed. Tum gaye, you went there, you did this, so this happened. So I think that is something which I first get rid of, the guilt. And we've had someone who's a 16-year-old where this is happening, you would want to evaluate for any other personality issues, multiple things, and then treat accordingly. And we've seen n number of patients who have not overcome the trauma of the abuse and they keep talking about it. And we of course seen some of them move into borderline personality constellation. So that is something which we need to be aware of.
And you would answer this question, like I would always answer that you need not have to experience such abuse always. Now you need to stand up to the abuse. You need to stand up to the abuser. And the problem is somebody who's abused is abused recurrently, because somewhere, the people who abuse understand that this girl is vulnerable, this girl is not going to shout, this girl is not, so the moment they name and shame people, everybody around them will become afraid. So kahin na kahin we have to tell that no, first time it was okay, second time, but next time we will not. We are there with you. You can do whatever you want to do. And that's where we need to stand with such people.
And thank you. I think we should start winding up.
Yeah. I think as usual, a fantastic deliberation. My take-home point is answers every child query. That is very, very important.
Yes.
I think with this, I would request the chairpersons for their closing comments and subsequently Dr. Amrit sir for Thanksgiving.
One line, we finish fast.
Because Tufan sir has not been able to
he has
connect
been
back.
disconnected. Alim is...
Yeah, no problem. So,
Yeah.
Dr. Bikram.
Bikram bhai.
Dr. Bikram.
Yeah.
Dr. Bik.
Thank.
Dr.
Thank you so much, Dr. Avinash. It was a lovely presentation listening to you, and I hope all the participants have had fresh insights as you wanted to in this from this lecture. Thanks, Dr. Vishal, Dr. Alim, Dr. Amrit, Dr. Shobit, and of course, Tufan Pati sir, for inviting me in this. And it was lovely hearing to you. Thank you.
I'd also like to say my chairperson comment. So congrats, Dr. Avinash Rishda, sir. It's a great lecture, and everyone has got great insights from your presentation. And I thank Dr. Vishal for inviting me. I thank Dr. Alim. I thank Dr. Amrit, Dr. Shobit, and I thank Dr. Tufan Pati, sir, and my co-chair, Dr. Bikram. It's been a great Thursday musings. I think 231st session on this very important topic of sex education in schools. And thank you, everyone. Right.
So at the end of the day, I would like to tell that Avinash, as always, you give him for 24 hours, he will speak on a lot of topics. Most of the topics, he has a different way of speaking, but the way he makes it simple, he takes a lot of controversial things and makes it less
Yes.
controversial. That's what I would talk about Avinash.
Thank you.
So thank you, Avinash. Darpan, I think Darpan was almost I thought sometimes that Darpan is the presenter and the others are the chairpersons, but because she gave a lot of input and that's wonderful, Darpan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Bikram, sorry for all the technical glitches we had. We were not able to see you. We were not able
Sorry.
to.
I am sorry. I am sorry. It got late
You
because of
came out well.
Yeah.
We were able to see you also. Thank you so much. Dr. Shobit, Dr. Vishal, thank you always for carrying this.
I want to first thank the topic because it has brought Amrit back into Thursday music. It's nice to see Amrit being very active.
Sex always brings.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It was very nice.
Right.
I think we had a lot of good. I think we should also we had a good count. Avinash throughout. I think we had touched 200 participants. So 188 was the constant. So you can always say much more people have joined.
उस folder में मैं education को हटा दिया था.
अच्छा ठीक है ठीक है.
The maximum number of queries off late in last few presentations. I think we'll have a lot of queries.
Yeah. So thank you. Very nice.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Good night. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.